Just a little. I know this. Chop, they are already washed.
Age is all a mindset. Delicious.
To a president.
They depended on you.
What else can I do? Get a shower couple and dancers.
Watch these programs and more on NTA Entertainment Channel 105 on Star Times. NTAE, your one-stop entertainment channel.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich. Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Imagine a station where you access information. Think of a station that creates awareness for national development. Imagine a station that prepares you for a bright and greater future. A station for all ages. Documentaries.
Hello. What has become a pervasive cancer attacking the nucleus of the nation's existence as an indivisible entity is our focus tonight. Hate speech, which also dominated the airwaves in recent times, especially on the internet platforms. Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of News, Views and Analysis. This is Weekend File, and here we go. Nigeria, as a multi-religious and ethnic country seeking to achieve sustainable peace, is ideally expected to have regulations guarding against speeches that have elements of hatred and intention to sow discord among different sections of the society. In recent months, issues of hate speech dominated national discourse. Many described it as ethno-religious and political time bomb waiting to explode. And to address the situation, a few weeks ago, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo announced that the federal government now classifies hate speech as terrorism act, and that offenders will be charged under Terrorism Prevention Act as amended. And since this announcement, debates about what constitutes hate speech came to the fore, as critics argue that classification or criminalization of hate speech as an act of terrorism infringes on the rights of citizens to freedom of expression as guaranteed by the Constitution. Now, what is the position of the UN? Article 20, Section 2 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, a multilateral treaty adopted in 1976, places an obligation on countries to prohibit hate speech. It provides also that any advocacy of national, political, racial, or religious hate speech that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence shall be prohibited by law, and that the prohibition is compatible with the rights of freedom of expression as contained in Article 19. On Weekend File tonight, we will be dissecting the substantive ambiguities as to the demarcation line between freedom of expression and hate speech, especially in relation to religious, political, and ethnic issues in a nation of 250 ethnic groups with over 500 languages. And here is the big question. Is there any amount of grievance against the government that can justify the level of ethnocentric hatred being peddled by many Nigerians, especially among the younger ones? We will seek answers to these and more questions on the program. And my name is Kirian Umayo, and thank you so much for finding time to join us on tonight's edition of the program. And here I will bring you the news first, as always. A devastating flood has hit Nimbo community in Uzuwani local government area of Enugu State, rendering over 200 families homeless. The incident, which paralyzed economic and social activities in the community, was due to a downpour which caused the Abako River to overflow its banks. Chinayengwe has that report.
The learning environment is no more conducive because the whole area has been covered with flood.
Two clergymen who took newsmen around the affected areas regretted the level of damages.
Since this flood of 18 started, many people have been displaced from their various houses.
Go to our church there today, you cannot just enter anywhere. Some of the things there are submerged by the flood.
Anybody who can come to our assistance to rescue us from such a problem through dredging of that same river, Akwa River.
We heard that government sent some intervention fund for that problem to be solved, but we only heard it on the air.
Now, the Conference of Speakers of State Legislators of Nigeria has assured the citizenry that their contributions on their 1999 Constitution review will be positive. The speakers gave the assurance in Yola during their third meeting, which focused on the 1999 Constitutional Review. Correspondent Tafawa Hamjamayo reports.
We are going to hold public hearings. We are going to involve all the strata of the people, and we are going to listen to them before we conclude.
We are agitating or earning or what we have concluded on so many matters. So many
interests of the people have been taken into consideration, and the amendments, I am sure, will be direct manifestation of the yearning of the people.
We have to go back, sit on the bills, and know what I want to put in our own views.
The federal government has urged Nigerians not to watch people destroy a common bond they have as a people and a nation, but ensure that peace reigns supreme through collective sacrifice. Vice President Yemi Oshibajo said this in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital, at grand finale of events marking the 30th anniversary of the state.
We are in a situation where we must take seriously the admonition to love our neighbors as ourselves. Whatever complaints we might have must not be an excuse for subverting the social order. The Buhari government is prepared to engage all sections of the country and to act in the best interest of our nation and its people. But you and I, as individuals, also have a major role to play. Citizens everywhere should never sit idly by when misguided elements in our midst recklessly destroy the common bonds of friendship, the common bonds of brotherhood, that have been built across tribe and tongue for decades.
Gloria Kanem, who monitored the events, reports that Governor of the state, Udom Emmanuel, in his goodwill message, thanked past administrations in the state for providing inspiring great leadership, which set the pace for the present achievements of the state.
That the dream of our fathers has birthed us this crown of glory.
All right, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has commended the Akwa Ibom state government for initiating moves to stabilize power supply in the state in line with the ongoing efforts of the federal government to boost this sector. Professor Osinbajo said this while inaugurating a metering solution company in a Tina local government area of Akwa Ibom state.
In the first place, we're going to have independent metering companies and agents. So a distributor or a distribution company, DISCO, does not necessarily have also to be a distributor of meters. So it's now opened up. Anybody can take advantage of consumers and meter.
The whole idea is to move towards what we call power for all. Similarly, the way you're doing with your phone, once you can buy the scratch card, you can have electricity.
Land allocated to government and private organizations for mass housing development in Abuja, but still lying fallow, may be revoked and given to serious investors. FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello gave this warning when he received the management of the National Defense College on a courtesy visit in Abuja.
We are reviewing allocations earlier made to institutions of government that have not developed their sites within a reasonable time frame. Some of them will have to be revoked to be given to other organizations that have capacity or are willing to.
The area of concern we have is the adjacent community there that is seems to be growing at a very, very high rate with the attendant challenge of security. We have seen that the main issue has to do with the access road.
Well, we're sorry for the loss of sound and even pictures in that report. Now, the Federal University Lafayette is to commence clinical studies following approval by the National Universities Commission. To this end, the Nasarawa state government has donated the Hatu Arat Specialist Hospital Lafayette to be developed by the institution as the teaching hospital.
On collaboration between Nasarawa State and APWEN to build one of the most sophisticated diagnostic centers in the country, and we are thinking about locating it where the teaching hospital is likely going to be.
This is in phases. You know, we are going to start pre-clinicals this year.
Now, the National Assembly will from 2018 appropriate for the Basic Health Care Provision Fund of the National Health Act, which has been signed into law since 2014, but has never been captured by the executive arm of government. Chairman, Senate Committee on Health, Dr. Larawaju Tejuosho, gave the assurance at the Public Health Africa Policy Forum held at the Chatham House, London. He said the desire to attain universal health coverage has made it imperative for appropriation, as the legislature and executive arms of government should explore holistic mechanisms to drive the universal health coverage agenda, as Nigeria progress has a multiplier effect on other African countries. Dr. Tejuosho advocated support for Nigeria's efforts through capacity building, knowledge exchange, and collaborations. The Nigeria Guild of Editors gathered in Port Harcourt, Rivers State for the Guild's 2017 conference, brainstorming on how best to balance professionalism, advocacy and business in the Nigerian media industry of profitability. Kinsley Amajiri reports that the conference has veterans and media gurus to chart the way forward.
We should de-emphasize physical structures and pay more attention to networking and to people. I would suggest that the NG should get sponsorships from global media giants.
This is one conference that we should educate ourselves about the need to train the upcoming journalists on the ethics of the profession, on the need to be nation builders, on the need to protect the integrity of Nigeria.
It is possible so far for the editor to be involved in things that will elevate his status and also be professional in his outing. So those two things, I think, they are things that we'll continue to ponder about.
We are building new bridges, we are looking at new areas, we are exploring so many things that can cause us to improve on our jobs.
Issues have arisen here, issues of ethics, bordering on ethics, professionalism, and combining it with business. I've learned quite a lot.
So there's need to put all this together and look inwardly and look at the individuals and also introduce welfareism into the process and also look at how they can structure something that will make professionals in the industry to grow and live after their active years.
One key role of media is advocacy. And so the balancing of these three key components is very important. If it is not done properly, we will not have the kind of press that we desire, that can hold government, that can hold businesses, and hold people accountable.
Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Akwa Ibom Mohammed, has charged the newly inaugurated Executive Committee of the Association of Professional Women Engineers, APWEN, Abuja chapter, to bring their wealth of experience to bear on and encourage young women to pursue careers in engineering profession. Abubakar Negidu reports that the Director General, who was represented by Mrs. Gladys Ibuanigo, Director of Engineering, stated these are the association's inaugural and award dinner ceremony.
Built over years by the previous past chairman of APWEN, and also I intend in this 2-year tenure to do a lot of advocacy in the mentoring of the girl child.
When you now educate a woman to become an engineer, you can imagine what her capacity and capabilities will be.
Women engineers having their own association, and with the support of what we have seen today, women can go higher more than this.
Nigerians are advised to follow the right path of dialogue in addressing grievances instead of agitations that undermine national peace and unity. This was at a prayer conference organized by women ambassadors at a one-day prayer session for Nigeria.
Welcome into a woman's world where all things are possible on our knees in prayers to God.
Let there be no hate speech. Despite of our tribes, despite of our languages, we prefer to be one because we are better together than divided.
The theme, "O Lord, Hail Our Land." This is the second edition tagged Womb of Nigeria. Now, strengthening peaceful coexistence through exploring commonness in faith is a duty for all Nigerians to embrace to move the country forward. This was the sentiment amongst participants at the public presentation of a book titled "We Believe in All Prophets, Including the Jesus of History." Musa Abubakar tells us more.
Besides being a country of multi-ethnic groups, Nigeria is also multi-religious, with Christianity and Islam being the dominant religions. Although there are occasional challenges to peaceful coexistence inspired by misconception and mischievous intentions in the past, this book provoked a theological dialogue on commonness of the two faiths with a view to strengthening peaceful coexistence.
We should do all we can to continue searching for, discovering and celebrating all our common grounds.
We should not just wish away our differences, understand them in line with what Allah Ta'ala said. That
from Adam to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it has always been about one God.
The 263-page book is made up of 4 parts that highlights lives, messages of the prophets of God, from Adam, Jesus of history, to Muhammad.
The content of the book is much about the commonalities, the consistencies that we have in the two religions that people are largely unaware of.
It falls within the work of human being, which is by nature imperfect, so there are certain shortcomings.
The book is believed will promote harmony needed for the development of the country. In Abuja, Musa Abubakar, NTA News.
You can watch this news live online via the NTA mobile app, which you can download on your Android device at the Google Play Store or at the Play Store if you use devices with iOS. Now, to the issue of authorized sedition. Analysts have traced the genesis of the recent hate speech across the country to political campaigns of 2015 elections, when verbal and non-verbal communication symbols of every imagination were deployed to promote self-interest and to denigrate opponents using unethical communication content on the mainstream media and the internet platforms to campaign for votes. The truth of the matter is that hate speech has become pervasive as politicians and non-politicians engage in it with flagrant disrespect to national unity and cohesion. Our correspondents have more on the analysis by Nigerians across the nation, and that is next. Do stay with us.
From 1967 to 1970, Nigeria went through a horrifying civil war. It didn't matter who was wrong or right. Everybody suffered. Those who fought that war say it should never happen again.
So a lot of people will say, but you were leading the first one. Yes, I led the first one. I don't think a second one is necessary. We should have learned from that first one. Otherwise, the dead would have been to no avail, could all have been in vain.
The words of our elders are full of wisdom.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Hey, now who they here? My name now Mr. Shortcut. I didn't mind my money. Now cheap one I dey buy. Standard, we say. Now to buy cheap one. Hey, now one kind cable for my yard. A cheap building material where we take build my office. I think say I dey save money. Office building collapse and fire burn my house.
You don't see what happened to Mr. Shortcut? Well, Standards Organization of Nigeria, SON, done ready for action and say enough of pain, loss and wastage. And if you see product where no dey correct, call the SON office when near you or SON help desk. Standards Organization of Nigeria, improving life through standards.
Availability. Check. Confidentiality. Check. Integrity. Check. Transformation in action. The 6 years of Governor Abdul Aziz Abubakar Yari in Zamfara State clearly manifest good governance and foresight. In fact, transforming the agrarian state to the promised land. Welcome to Zamfara, a state being governed by a visionary and dynamic leader whose magic finger is touching every aspect of human lives. No wonder Abdul Aziz Yari is being referred as agent of Buhari's change mantra. Yari, is bringing development closer to the Zamfara people and the nation at large. Zamfara, the pride of the nation. This message is brought to you by Iowa Media Group.
This is the game I've been waiting for, and I get a headache. But I remembered Mom's advice.
Son, don't let anything stop you, okay?
When headache strikes, I always trust Sudrex. Because Sudrex acts fast to relieve headaches. Sudrex, win your day.
We want to buy Indomie noodles. 4 packs, please.
Yo.
This is not my Indomie. Please, sir, it's not Indomie. Don't call it Indomie.
Sir, the taste is the difference. The difference is in the taste. That's why my brothers, my mommy, my daddy, and I all enjoy our delicious, so very delicious Indomie noodles. The difference is the taste.
Taste is the difference.
Yes, difference is in the taste. Nothing tastes like my Indomie.
Indomie noodles, tasty nutrition, good for you.
Hello, thank you for staying with us up to this moment on tonight's edition of Weekend File. Recently, the media has been awash with these two words, hate speech. What constitutes hate speech? Who perpetuates it? What prompts it? Correspondent Edina Justice in this background report attempts the meaning and the effect of hate speech.
Hate speech as a concept is derived from the root word hate, which means to dislike greatly or intensely or to have a great aversion to. United Nations Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination describes hate speech as threat, incitement to hatred, contempt, discrimination or violence against members of a group on grounds of their race, color, and descent, national or ethnic origin. The bottom line is incitement to violence, hostility, or prejudicial action against an individual or group.
Hate speech, can really, incite certain group of people against the other within the community, within the larger society, and if not, checked, can lead to war. But what breeds hate speech? For me, all these things will still be located to access to resources, access to public resources.
Worried by the dangers of hate speech, the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, at a recent event in Abuja, warned on how it was used in some countries to cause genocide.
A radio station called Radio Television League, the Milk Colleague, played a significant, even if ignorant, role in inciting the violence that triggered the genocide in Rwanda, in which at least 800,000 people died in less than 100 days in 1994. Such is the power of the broadcast industry that no nation can afford to leave it in the hands of irresponsible, unpatriotic, hate-screen persons.
Many people in Nigeria pass hate speech innocently without knowing it. For example, words like Aboki or Adamu, used by non-Hausa speakers to refer to Hausa, or Yemiri for the Igbo and Ibati for Yoruba, are said to be derogatory at a lower rung, with underlying hatred, and people use them most of the time without manifest malice. But hate speech directly incites people to violence or hostility. But many critics are quick to argue that any action to muzzle hate speech could be an indirect attack on the freedom of speech. Senator Emmanuel Dagana, a legal practitioner, speaks on the position of law on hate speech and freedom of speech.
Inasmuch as Section 319 of the Constitution gives you the right of free speech, it shows you that that opportunity or the freedom of speech that you have is not absolute. It stops where my own right starts. That you have the right to free speech doesn't mean you will either publish or disseminate what will either incite people to action, illegal action, or that will defame another person. In every consideration of the legal position, hate speech has never been tolerated anywhere.
Although hate speech has been around for a long time now, the use of modern communication gadgets such as print and broadcast media and the ease of accessibility of the social media, ICT, have made a mess of it. The questions now are, how do we curtail hate speech?
What is the separation line between hate speech and freedom of speech? And what is the dividing line between hate speech and statement of facts? Some people believe that hate speech could be a product of social injustice. Aiding Justice, NTA News.
Thank you indeed, Aiding Justice, for that report. And from Annie Daniels from a Lagos Network Center, she says that the recent agitation by some Nigerians for secession and other issues relating to restructuring has actually resulted in hate speeches, especially on the social media. Now let's get that report from Lagos.
Individuals or groups on the basis of attributes. In Nigeria today, hate speeches have become the order of the day. These are disseminated on traditional and social media. Respondents argue that if left unabated, what played out in Rwanda will be experienced in Nigeria.
I think it started like what we're about to see in Nigeria, but God will not allow it to happen. Rwanda genocide is not something we talk about because families, generations were eroded.
The development that we are looking for will not be there. Even the outside world, they will be thinking those things are wrong for right. And the way they will perceive us is that these people are not serious.
Respondents further explain that over 2 decades after Rwandan genocide, the country is yet to fully recover from the impact of the genocide.
So this idea of hate speech is a political machinations of some individual to create divisions among the masses. And as a result now, when they create that division, it now give them the room to manipulate and win political power.
The whole world is calling for peace. The whole world is calling for, mutual cohabitation and all. There's no room for that kind of thing. It's backward. It's like trying to take us back over 50 years ago.
The way out of impending genocide and war in Nigeria, they say, is for citizens to speak out against hate speech on all available platforms. Federal governments must promote programs that encourage peace, unity and equality, as well as provide the people with basic amenities.
Even now, as I'm talking, you see houses, Igbo house and Yoruba, living in the same houses. Share toilets, sharing bedroom.
Get a group of people, as I said, to now fashion for us Vision 2040, vision and agenda, what Nigeria will be by 2040, an industrialized country, a developed country, a top medium income country, over 300 million people, significant in the world. Let that be the vision.
Observers say that hate speech paves way for hatred, discrimination, violence and disintegration among various ethnic groups, which, of course, is harmful to the social and economic growth of Nigeria and must be discouraged. In Lagos, Annie Daniels, NTA News.
And, of course, the situation calls for concern as the media is expected to play the role of redefining the value system that once united the people. Kingsley Amaje reports that these were some of the views of leaders of thought across the divide as they expressed their views on the issues.
Multiplicity of ethnic groups, religion, and social diversities in Nigeria, the issue of hate speech becomes a concern to many stakeholders.
Hate speech cannot be taken for granted because as it is now, the country is already heated up.
You know, in Africa, we have a tradition. A tradition that, makes you to respect your senior, irrespective of where he is. As long as you know with one day, you must give him his respect. But that is no more there. Because of what we have imbibed cultures that are not our own.
For some concerned stakeholders, the media critical role in nation building within this context becomes relevant in re-engineering national cohesion.
We can do that by reducing our publications and broadcasts of such hate speeches and also let people know the implications.
In the views of Chief Olufalaye, hate speech should be defined and distinction made between it and constructive criticism.
We are in a democratic dispensation. People to be free to criticize their public officers, okay? But they should be polite, they should be constructive.
What factors give rise to hate speech? How can it be resolved? Respondents are of the view that mutual respect and cooperation of all is key to sustaining development in Nigeria. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajuri.
Now, concerned citizens in Kaduna State advocate effective regulation of the social media being the most common platforms people make use of to commit the act, are mindful of the danger such portends. Ahmad Omar Kodan tells us more.
Every genocide in human history has been preceded by hate speech, and it is promoted by the media, sometimes promoted by public discourse. But always, hate speech precedes genocide and some of the greatest tragedies in human history.
That was Nigeria's Vice President speaking on the negative consequence of hate speech, assuring that such practice would not be tolerated in Nigeria. Hate speech can be seen as any speech that is used to demean people based on their identities such as race, religion, or ethnicity, and predisposes them to acts of violence. Though hate speech is not a new phenomenon in Nigeria, its resurgence in media, particularly social media, is a source of concern among stakeholders.
The consequence of hate speech is disunity, is lack of growth.
All misunderstandings emanate from hate speech, and from there they escalate to a situation that brings about war.
Even people who don't know what's happening, it can infect them, and then it can have a ripple effect.
Looking at these inciting statements, comments, and fake news emanating from different sections of the country, courtesy of social media platforms, stakeholders emphasize the need for proper regulation of social media in Nigeria.
Even in so-called civilized climes, there is total regulations. Didn't the other way China regulated their internet? They did, because there are issues concerning national unity.
On the other hand, religious and community leaders should be up and doing in sensitizing youth on the dangers associated with hate speech. It is important for Nigerians to desist from utterances capable of dividing the country along ethnic, sections, or religious lines, and promote unity and peaceful coexistence. In Kaduna, Ahmad Umar Kudan, NT News.
Thank you indeed, Ahmad, from Kaduna. Now, from the Southeast Zone comes a report that some religious, traditional, and labor leaders have condemned hate speech and inflammatory statements from various individuals and groups aimed at instigating violence in the country. I'll now get that report from Chinenye Nwoye from our Enugu Network Center.
The call for restructuring, devolution of power through federalism and secession has recently triggered off hate speeches, agitations, and inflammatory statements from various individuals and groups in the country. The federal government recently declared hate speeches as a terrorist act, and in view of the present security challenges in the country, some religious, traditional, and labor leaders opined that there is also a need for effective communication and dialogue between the government and various aggrieved groups with a view to finding out reasons for agitations and anger.
So you have to invite people to talk. In the process of talking, you know why they're angry. And then we'll try to also reason out solutions.
Even if we have differences or grievances, we should be civil and channel it in the right direction.
Government to put machinery in place to bring out these people and let us sit at the round table to discuss what the matter is.
Some individuals from the Southeast say there is need for Nigerians to rededicate themselves to the ideals of peace by thinking peace, talking peace, and making peace.
Whatever thing you want to do, think if that will bring peace.
To strengthen the ideals of peace among all nations and people, some respondents believe that dialogue will go a long way in dousing anger already registered in the minds of people. In Enugu, Chineye Nwoye, NTA News.
This is Weekend File on the network service of the NTA, and we are heading for a break. And when we return, the Director General of the National Orientation Agency will be joining me for the conversation segment on hate speech. Keep it here.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, is working to ensure access to safe, good quality essential medicines with the World Health Organization pre-qualification of made in Nigeria pharmaceutical products, stiffer penalties for fake drug offenders with a review of NAFDAC laws, national, regional, and international collaborations, cutting-edge technologies, including the mobile authentication service.
The production and distribution of counterfeit medicine and adulterated food products have negative impact on our health and economy as a whole. I urge all Nigerians to support NAFDAC in safeguarding our health. God bless Nigeria.
Let us support NAFDAC to win the war against fake drugs and other unwholesome regulated products. NAFDAC, safeguarding the health of the nation.
Issues in the sports sector remain one of the most debated among Nigerians due to the passion, followership, government involvement, impact on Nigeria's external image and our national life in the sports parliament. The NTA offers Nigerians deep views on issues with experts in the sports sector, offering in-depth analysis, hindsight, insight and foresight towards elevating Nigerian sports to the zenith on the floor of the sports parliament.
So many things have been wrong in sports. We've been talking around it.
We need performance expertise, and you can only get some of this where you have world-class facilities.
How can sports deliver return of investment to attract the kind of money required to take it to the next level?
We cannot interfere in the internal affairs of even the federations that belongs to us.
Sports Parliament, a unique platform for sports discussions, showing live on the NTA, Thursdays at 11 p.m. Keep a date with the parliamentarians.
The eyes have it.
Welcome back, and our guest tonight is the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Mr. Garba Abari. Sir, thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you very much, Kiran.
Now, sir, some describe it as an ethnocentric ideology that is inimitable to the peace and well-being of the majority of Nigerians. And others think that it's an anti-peace advocacy intended to disrupt the system. Now, in your opinion, and based on what we've been hearing in the recent past, what constitutes a hate speech?
Well, thank you very much. I think what constitutes hate speech has been adequately described. I've just been
following the reports on the program now, anything, any statement that is being made with the sole aim of vilifying or ridiculing a person or group of persons on the basis of ethnicity, of gender, or religious persuasion can constitute hate speech, so long as it is done willfully. Now, it is not something new in our country. Hate speech is not something new in the country. It has assumed a crescendo and reached the point it has now because it has gotten a lot of political undertones. And this is something which we must not lose sight of. But by way of a slight digression, let me make a little correction. When I saw in the report that some of the terms that we use to call one another in the country, whether we refer to the Igbo as Yamuri or the Hausa as Aboki or to the Yoruba as Mbati, these are not hate speeches. These are things that actually have been said, and they have been said in a jocular manner.
Exactly.
Yeah, in a jocular manner, and we have come to terms with that reality. And when such names are being reported to one group or the other, we all laugh over it. But hate speech has now assumed the proportion it has to a point where it is threatening the unity and oneness of the peace and development of the country, because so many factors have come to play: economic, social, political, to a large extent partisan, not only political but specifically partisan. And these are things that we actually need to put in perspective so that we know where the country is headed, where we are today, where we are coming from. So, to this extent, therefore, I will say that it cannot be seen or be said or be described as an ethno-religious ideology. It is not. It is not an ideology of any type. Actually, it is a social nuisance. It is a social, it is an undesirable social conduct being propagated by people who want to cause confusion and would want to exploit the fault lines for the purposes of attaining certain set objectives.
Yeah. And of course, in the last couple of weeks, the Vice President actually announced that the federal government now has drawn a line for his speech, making it a terrorism act. And of course, Article 20, which of course we cited earlier on, of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and made provision for nations to actually domesticate, that article by, legislating over it. To be able to tackle so. Now, in our own circumstance now, how do we go forward, right, making it a terrorism act with respect to legislative provisions to tackle it?
And the very fact that the United Nations actually has gone this far and asked member nations of the body to domesticate that law tells you the seriousness with which hate speech, fake news, and the other related issues have become very serious threats to national peace, to international peace, to national peace, and to development. In the case of our country, what perhaps we can start looking at as a very, very hard look at our cyber laws, because basically, most of the hate speeches that we see are coming from the social media. The conventional media also plays its own part, because there are people who are columnists, people who are in the newspapers and writers in magazines. There are people who appear on television screens, and what they say actually can be categorized within the realm of hate speech. But most of it actually comes from the social media, simply because it is a medium that is very difficult to regulate, simply because it is like a catch-22 situation. We have the benefits of it because of simultaneity, because of very wide coverage.
Now, how do you get legislative provisions to tackle it?
Well, there are things that, first and foremost, the National Assembly needs to take a look at all the laws that are now there in place and see how sufficiently they can cover these aspects of hate speeches and the fake news. Where they cannot, then the National Assembly, as is constitutionally required of it, can go about legislating, putting in place new laws, because the issue of hate speech, which is erroneously being equated with free speech, is something which has to be seen within the context of striking the very delicate balance between where free speech ends and where hate speech
freedom
begins.
of speech, the demarcation point.
The demarcation point. And this can be done.
Freedom of speech and hate speech.
Freedom of speech and hate speech.
And which, of course, is in Article 19 of what we've read. Because in Article 19, it provides for freedom of speech. And then what the article says is that Article 20 did not jeopardize Article 19, which is for freedom of speech. So there is a difference between hate speech and, of course, freedom of speech. Now, how much damage has been done so far, within this period that Nigerians have been hearing all manner of hate speeches?
A very, very, very big damage has been done. And of course, you see, our country is passing through very difficult moments. We are passing through so many challenges simply because we have not adequately addressed our nation-building processes adequately. Our nation-building processes still remain largely far away from meeting the requirements of integration, of building a country and our pluralism, actually, which is supposed to be the basis of, or which is supposed to actually be a basis for our unity, actually has been mismanaged. We have not been able to put a system in place that can manage our pluralism. And the management of diversity has developed into a science which we cannot, as a nation, actually overlook. So this is one. And two is the issue that Nigerians have not been talking to ourselves. We have not been talking to ourselves. We only talk of ourselves. We only talk of either one or two or three. Only we are what we see are actually Nigerians talking about one another and not talking to one another. We are talking off, but not talking to. And this is a very big problem. And that is why some of the issues that are now generating these hate speeches are issues that need to be brought and placed on the table, pace up, so that we begin to address them fundamentally.
Your submission has actually brought us to the next question, which is very, very important. You are the DG of an agency of reorientation and national birth. What has been your efforts during to ensure that songs of discord will cease to exist in the polity? So I remember, vividly, what happened where we used to have war against indiscipline, and there is this pressure, and it cut across all generations during the period. Now, what is NOA doing at the moment, or intends to do in the future to have the capacity?
A lot the National Orientation Agency has been doing, and let me take us back to the era before I became the Director General. As far back as 2014, when the campaigns were getting heated, the National Orientation Agency has had cause to actually embark on a very wide, very large-scale sensitization and advocacy. It had conducted round tables with social media practitioners. It has conducted round tables with members of the conventional press, both electronic and the print. It had undertaken a lot of advocacy. What we are now doing actually is a continuation of what had already been started 3 years back. And we are doing this at different levels. As recently as last week, we have had a round table with not with all the social media operators, but with a large representation of them, to talk to them about the responsibility of the media practitioner in the dissemination of information, and the correct information for that matter, especially in times like this, where our patriotic instincts has been supposed to be touched. Because this is the time when all of us must have to begin to think responsibly and bring out our patriotic zeal to bear on our profession. That's one. Two, we embark on advocacy. Advocacy to traditional rulers, advocacy to religious leaders. Traditional rulers basically because they are the closest to the people, and they have structures which they can use in order to communicate down to the lowest level.
What about advocacy in schools, primary, secondary schools?
Now I'm coming. Then advocacy with the religious institution because of the large number of people they address week in, week out. Is it on Fridays through the sermons, the khutbah, or on Sundays through what the pastors and the bishops actually also preach? Now, with that, this is one level. At the other level is actually what we do under our Catch Them Young program. You know, recently, just on the 16th of September, we celebrated the National Ordinance Day. The idea is actually to bring about, to sensitize and to our school children, especially those that are at primary and the secondary levels, to appreciate actually some of our national symbols, which are symbols of our unity. You know, the national flag, the national anthem. What do they mean? What is it? And when you say you are a Nigerian, who are you? What does it? That is it. So we are actually doing quite a lot.
Well, the time is not on our side, sir. I want to thank you so much for your time. You know, on this program, we actually appreciate it. We appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I've been speaking with the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Mr. Garba Abari. Now, up ahead on Weekend File is sports.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Nigeria Volleyball set camp players ahead of Africa Men's Nations Cup in Egypt as Team Mula wins all 4 matches in the NCC Tennis League on Saturday. Adiola Mokivi has more on Sports Update.
It was another display of tennis prowess on Saturday in Lagos when 2 home sides battled for